Hello, and welcome to Soft Human Voice. This is a podcast dedicated to helping you remember your divine connection, your source connection. And we want to remind you that you are not alone and life doesn't have to be scary or confusing. You are loved, you're wise, you're intuitive, and you are all knowing. And you are more co-creative than you think. And you forget all of this. And so let's remember together. So, welcome again. And I am Jessica Shepard, and I've done this podcast in the past, primarily using it for energy practices that I share with you to help you to reconnect. But we're taking a little bit of a different turn today, even though we will explore some of that. I have a guest here with me and a co host. My co host is Courtney Sprung, and she is a gifted intuitive reader and psychic. And I know this from personal experience. And she excels at naming your true potential and then calling out any ways you're holding yourself back from stepping into that. And she is super passionate about your co-creativity and helping you create the abundance you want and the life you want. And she teaches classes on this, and she has many students and clients. So I'll let Courtney tell you more about herself a little bit later. Um, I'm Jessica Shepard, in case you don't know me. I am many things, an astrologer, healer, intuitive artist, aspiring Qigong teacher, and author of 5 books, mostly about spirituality, astrology, self-love, love. But my latest is actually an intuitive energy divination deck for reconnecting with your true self. I have been a healing arts professional for several decades, and I have been on my own personal healing journey for far longer than that. So, between us both, I feel that we are somewhat qualified to help you explore how to get back into that space of connection with yourself. So, I'd like to start this particular podcast by talking about connection and what it is, just to give us a sense of what we're doing here. Um, Usually, when we talk about connection, especially as women, we typically reference relationships. We what does what does it feel like to be connected? We probably instantly and unconsciously think about our connection to others. Um, I particularly have had to work a long time, a good number of years to redefine my connection and bring it back from that. And so when I'm using the term connection or being connected, I am specifically referring to being connected to yourself, your true self, and your own divine connection, which to me are interchangeable. So when I'm connected, this is how I feel. I feel flowing. I feel expansive. I feel totally present. I feel in tune with myself, in my body, and in my inner knowing. And it feels great. Uh, Maybe I feel this way when I'm in certain environments doing certain things. But I also know that there are practices that I can do, ways of taking care of myself, and practical strategies for getting back into that sense of being deeply connected to who I am, that place from which everything flows, like my best ideas, my intuition, source, um, awareness, all of this flows from being connected. Now, disconnection is a part of our human experience. It is absolutely 100% normal to feel disconnected. And so, what do I mean by that? Well, you're not feeling those wonderful things, right? You are not feeling present to yourself. You are not really knowing your true feelings about a thing. It may be anything from what you want for dinner to what you need to take care of yourself right now to a major life choice. Um, when we are disconnected, that sense of, not for me at least, it's like not being in my spine, not being in my body, not being in my source connection. Um, I often will go feel when I'm disconnected as an empath, I'll have external energies getting in my field. I'll have a lot of distractions and I won't feel here. And so there's so many causes of disconnection, especially in our modern world, right? There's so many distractions in this world, from everything from the newspaper to your own belief structure. I mean, it's vast. And so part of, I believe, feel the human experience is that we come into this reality to forget in order to remember. And so it takes a bit of work, it takes a bit of dedication to go back into connection most, if not all of the time. And that is entirely possible to be connected most, if not all of the time. And I feel that that's how I live right now. So maybe that's a good lead in for exploring one of my favorite and ongoing strategies, practices for coming back to myself and just tuning into embodied awareness. Really, what this is um, setting the stage for so many great things to happen. Um, on a practical level, can be as simple as just bringing you back to yourself after being in a lot of different external energies and thoughts and ideas. Um, but for like light workers and healers, this kind of practice, we all do some variation of it to bring our awareness back into a more embodied sense of inner listening so that we know where we are and we know that we're in our flow, in our connection, and we know how to tap into um, all of all the answers that you're looking for. We all do some form of this, all of us healers. So I want to just lead you into this guided practice, and and I am hoping that's okay with Courtney.
Totally.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I invite you to uh, be seated if you're not already seated. This is not something you're going to be doing as you're exercising, even though podcasts are fun to listen to on treadmill. But I invite you to find a comfortable seated position. And there's a reason for this. And it's because your feet are going to be on the ground connected to the earth, and you are of earth, and you get energy from the earth. And it's a marvelous connection to have when you realize you can recycle and renew and heal your own energy through earth energy. So you want to feel your feet on the ground. I like to do this barefoot. And you also want to feel that connection from your feet through the back of your well-supported body. So be somewhere comfortable, like so your back gets supported if that's important to you. And then you feel your connection all the way up to the crown of your head, your crown chakra, where you get this wonderful insight and divine knowing coming from up above the heavens. So you're literally seated in a position where you are bringing heaven down to earth and earth up to you. So that's why we sit. So I invite you to just settle in a little bit to your seat and feel your feet on the ground. Feel the texture underneath your feet. Feel the temperature. Wiggle your toes a little bit. Then feel your pelvic bowl, your hips, your buttocks on your seat, being supported. And bring your awareness up back through the back of your spine, feeling that nice support of like the pillow or the chair back behind you. And bring your awareness back into the area behind your heart. And what I'd like you to do is just to drop into that area. So this means bringing your awareness, becoming aware of your heart, the area behind your heart, surrounding your heart, your entire chest cavity. You can use your breath and feel a nice expanse on your inhale. And just see what you feel in your, this is called your center. Noticing the quality of your energy here. Maybe you feel quite open-hearted. Maybe you feel your energy is racing a little bit, it's running a little fast. Whatever you notice, perfectly fine. This is just about opening your awareness to include what is going on inside your body. And see if you can expand your awareness a little bit in that area, maybe with your in-breath. If you find your attention or awareness is, you're finding this difficult, ask the question, where am I? It's an invitation. So where am I? How can a question be an invitation? Well, by just noticing where you are, you also notice that you're not here. So that invites your awareness right back into your center. And you can ask it again, where am I? I don't answer this. I just notice that I immediately come back. Like I'm more here. And then follow your awareness down into your pelvic bowl. And how you're going to do that is just bring that same awareness of that heart area, chest cavity. Just follow your spine, like the front of your spine, because you're inside your body now. Like you're sliding down that spine. And you're going all the way into your pelvic bowl. And you're just dropping into your pelvic floor and just landing on that pelvic floor and just feeling your full awareness right there on your seat, in your seat. You might feel warmth spreading through your legs, your knees. That's normal. That's called sensing energy. Or you might feel nothing. Whatever you feel, it's fine. But you are bringing your awareness down into your pelvic bowl. It feels cozy if you're connected here. You're feeling really inward and connected, you're going to feel probably a warm feeling of like Just feels good. It's good to be here. This is your chakra area that has to do with pleasure and safety and personal power. And you have all those spinning, you're going to feel good. Now just bring your awareness down your legs, so down your thighs. And if you are sensing that energy, some kind of warmth, follow that like a breadcrumb trail down your thighs. Feel it flow down your knees, your calves, your feet, opening up to the earth right underneath your feet. See if you can maybe open up some channels down there underneath your feet, your energy centers. There's a major energy center underneath on the bottom of your feet. You can just invite it to open up and connect you to the earth. Just an invitation. What would it feel like to connect with the earth? Just imagine and feel your energy cords expanding into the earth. As you breathe in, you might expand into the earth a little bit more, like there are little lungs down there that you can just breathe more earth in. And as you exhale, you might feel more flow. One breath, breathing in the earth, just connecting with it, its quality of energy. And now just as you're still sensing inward, feel from the inside your connection to earth, the ground. Feel your seat connected there in your root area, your pelvic bowl. Feel your center. Your awareness is fully present. And then to the top of your crown chakra, imagine a golden orb of light, liquid light. It can be whatever texture, color you want it to be. Gold is quite popular for obvious reasons. And just imagine some beautiful, liquid, warm, expansive light just hovering, shimmering over your top of your head. And whenever you're ready, with an in-breath, set the intention to invite it down into your body. And then with your exhale, you're going to circulate it through all those points we visited. So I'll model it for you. You can do it with me or at your own pace, but you go inhale, exhale. Again. Beautiful liquid light filling up all the spaces that need comfort and release. Breaking up any stagnation or energy you don't want to hold on to, and allowing it to flow all the way down into the ground, into the earth. It can be whatever texture quality you want. It can even be honey. It can be champagne. I do it all. The most vital thing is to try and feel it. That's why those um, associative textures and foods really help bring pleasure into your body and help you feel your energy. And we're going to just do it one more time before we close this practice. Ah. As you feel inside and get ready to come back into your everyday awareness, you can just notice if anything shifted for you, if you feel more connected, more embodied, more aware, more present. If you feel any better, feel a little more relaxed. And you can set the intention to carry this feeling and this embodied energetic feeling into the rest of your evening, day, week, to stay connected and to remember this feeling. If you feel good, you don't feel good, try again. So when you're ready, just come back, open your eyes. That was Courtney's first experience of that with me. And some of you may have had that experience who are listening, because I've taught classes and also, of course, done the podcast. And it's interesting, Courtney, because I was like, I hope this isn't like too from left field for you, because we're going to tell you about our soulmate connection and how we connected. And it was mostly through my first book, which is about mm, connecting to self-love and helping yourself mm, love yourself, come back into that great loving connection with yourself so that you can attract your perfect partner. So this is just to introduce. Yeah. How was that?
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, being on, nobody could ask for a better experience for the first time they do a podcast than for somebody to get them grounded during the podcast. I feel so present. Um, but yes, we've never spoken about those type of practices, and it's something that I desperately seek out. So that was amazing and a great way to come back to yourself. I was seeing my third eye have a heart, and I was like, oh, like we're here for love. We're here to share
Mhm.
love. Yes. Now I can receive this and give what I need to get. So thank you. That was amazing. And people should come back and listen to this episode just to experience that. I know I will.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's funny. I've been getting because we decided to launch this on Valentine's Day, we decided to do this new format of podcasting. I was invited into Courtney's book club because she, during the Libra eclipse, got this download that she should start a Love Alchemist Notebook book club. And then she is so great at, she's so connected externally too and internally, which that's such an amazing balance. It's something I am like, whoa. But she called in her people to do this book with her. And how many people do you have doing it with you?
It's like 18 people, and I would say there's about 40 or 50 that are reading the book like on their own. Um, but yeah, so many people. And it was because on that eclipse, and I am no astrology master yet, maybe one day, but something was going on with self-love and that love
Mhm.
connection. And all of a sudden I'm like, love alchemist can save us all. And it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to find her. Weirdly enough, I couldn't find you. I could only find your website. And so I've never done that before, by the way. I
Hmm.
hit the contact us button. There's like a drop down.
Oh
And I
yeah.
emailed you. And it was like, I don't even know. There was no thought process. It was just like
Yeah.
such such a bizarre thing to,
Divinely orchestrated for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
I had no thought process on it. And you wrote me back so quickly. And on the eclipse, I told everybody, she is going to be my friend. She's going to speak in this book club. The book club hadn't even began yet. And I was like, you guys join this book club because the author of this book is going to speak in it. And I was like, if I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to say I'm not a great manifester. And it all just fell so beautifully into place. So
It
thank you
was
for,
so amazing.
yeah.
It was so amazing. And I remember receiving your email and um did you ask me if I do sessions? That's what you were asking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I read your book, actually on Valentine's Day, I bought your book on Valentine's Day, I think 13 years ago. Um, I was like, who is this? Who is this woman? When I have a really strong connection to people, I go and I find that about the author page. I was going to call it a tab. Millennial, but I went to the back of the book and it was like Jessica Shepherd, astrologer. She does readings. And then I don't know, but I had this thing in my head. I was like, well, I can't afford this because I could barely afford this book, but I'm going to get this book. And one day I'm going to book a reading with her. And so I had waited, what, 13 years to ever get an astrology, a birth chart reading. I like met
And it's not like
the
you haven't
person.
had opportunity either, because you're like in the community.
Well, I met one of your teachers
Yeah, you met my
and I was
teacher.
like, I'll just do hypnosis with you. And I didn't tell him, but I was like, I'm gonna get a reading from Jessica one day.
That's so
And so I finally was like, oh my gosh, well, you could have afforded this a long time ago. Reach out and see if she does it. And it didn't seem like you really offered it anymore. But I
nope.
was just like, I am just going to shoot my shot. And so that's how we're here. Um,
And
it was divine.
it was totally divine because I don't think I'd given like maybe I'd given one personal astrology session in the past couple of years. And I really listened to my embodied intuition about because people do hit the contact button and I've been around for a little while. And so I was doing consults as my main gig for a long time, astrology consults. But your email came through and instantly it was just such a huge yes from my heart. And I was like, what? What? Like, what? It really kind of took me back. And, but I've learned to listen. And I was telling John, I know you like I was telling John, and I was telling John, my soulmate, I said, the weirdest thing happened is this, like, oh my gosh, this girl loves my book and she wants a session with me. And I think I'm going to say yes. It just feels right. And so he was like, yeah, you should do it. And that kind of reintroduced astrology, back in, started weaving it back to what it is I'm doing on a more regular basis. So yeah, it was really special. And just actually hearing that I mean, I wrote that book. You've got to just get perspective on timing. Okay, I did the work that I recorded in my notebooks and eventually turned into a book in the early 2000s. Right. The book was not published. I wrote it in like 2007, 8. The book, I manifested my soulmate in between there. And the book was not published till 2010. So the fact that you're reaching out to me in 2024 Like, what? Just kind of 14 years later. Yeah,
I know.
it's
I
amazing.
think about it all the time that it was even on an eclipse that I reached out. I'm like, wow, that was I can't explain it other than knowing that it was meant to be. And so special to my inner child because I was, I think 20 years old, and I was like, this is the Bible. Like,
And
no
you
more.
run with it since then. You've used it with a lot of your clients, it sounds like.
Oh, yes. Like, and sometimes when you read things and you learn things, you think that it's yours for a little bit, like you're like, you forget where you learn it from. And I kept going back, like, oh no, you need to read that. I would tell people, like, you need to read this book. Like, this isn't my information. I read it here. So you should go. And I like to kind of have a source so people don't just think like it almost backs me up, it like
Yeah.
validates it. So yeah, that book really taught me self-discipline, which to me is self-love.
Mm.
That was the biggest thing for me because at the time, and I don't know if I'm getting off track, but flowing, I was kissing toads all the time. And I was just settling for whoever came my way. And I read this book and it's like, no, know yourself, know what you want, and be disciplined enough to love yourself enough to say no and wait for what you want to come your
Mhm.
way. And at that moment, I remember I like cleared out my phone book. I was like, none of you take all your any gifts that I've gotten. Like I had like designer gifts that some guy had bought me, and I was like, all these are yours. They're blocking me. And it was that
Okay.
was my first introduction to knowing that discipline and being so sure and so certain and disciplined about what I truly want is going
Interesting.
to be the biggest form of self-love for me.
Wow. That is really cool. I mean, there's such an emphasis on patience in that work, right? And taking that time to reflect and be with yourself. And um, when you're not feeling the love, figure it out. Like, there's so many invitations to love yourself in that work. But yeah, the fact that it took time, it's interesting because, I I did the work at a time in my life when, um, as I've mentioned to you before, a little bit of astrology, Saturn was joining my Venus. And that's classically a time of relational maturity, like a time when you are needing to up level and get really clear on, what it is you're really about, where you're settling for less, and get really have this extended period of time because Saturn moves really slow, and kind of presents some hurdles if you don't slow down and get reflective, but really take that time to, do open heart surgery, so to speak. That's a good metaphor because that's what it felt like I was doing sometimes, and doing it in a real intentional way. Um, I decided during that time, that I'm primary in this. Yes, I have a feeling that my soulmate is coming. Yes, I'm open to him arriving in divine timing, but my focus was on me. And it was on doing whatever it takes to get to the place where I feel I'm appreciating me. I'm giving myself whatever it is I think that bad boy, you know, um, has. There's this like grabby mentality with our wounded self that, like, somebody passes by, and they appreciate us and they adore us and they give us gifts, or they, tell us good things about ourselves or turn the spotlight on us. And it's like, oh my gosh, and I was recognizing that that was happening with me, right? And I was like, wait a second, like, why can't I hold that in myself? Right. And so every weird relationship experience I had, I put into that book. It was all investigative. It was like I'm an investigative reporter on myself. John gave me the greatest compliment the other day. He told me, he's like, you approach your life like an academic. And I was like, He's like, that is so cool. And I was like thinking about, well, what does that mean? But it's very like, I do little experiments I reflect, I investigate, I go deeper into questions. So that is really the book, right? I mean,
Yeah. No, exactly. And there's all these different experiments that
yeah.
you do with the universe in there, not only just your experiences, it's your experiments of spells that you've created and developed
Yeah.
to co-create with the universe.
Hmm.
And that was my actual first spell book, that I had
Yeah.
ever had. All I know is the moment that I touched it, I was like, I have to have this. And it became my Bible for so long. And it was because it wasn't just about finding a soulmate for me. I
Hmm.
knew that what you were giving me was the secret sauce for everything. Because
Huh.
focusing on myself and loving myself and prioritizing myself
Hmm.
is going to get me everything I want.
Everything.
And the
Absolutely.
soulmate is an added benefit, right? Like
Right.
that's just one component to someone's life.
That's the cherry on top.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
a
And
really
so,
good cherry on top.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what's the point without it, right?
Okay.
But there's also all these other things that I apply those techniques on and make sure
Mhm.
I'm tapped into, because the prioritization of myself, there was none of it. Like I remember one thing my best friend said to me, she goes, you don't have to respond just because somebody messages you. Like I felt like I had to respond to every
Mhm.
single, I'm going to call it inquiry because that's what it feels like from men at that time. She was like,
Mhm.
why are you answering? They're not like, that's not anybody to you. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you don't have to.
Yeah.
And then I read your book and I was like, I brought it to her. I was like, look, we are going to apply these situations and we are going to find our soulmate. And every year on New Year's, we would do one of the spells in the book. Uh,
Oh, that's
and try to
awesome.
like manifest. And we actually cheers to soulmates because at one point that was the only thing that I was really
Hmm.
interested was in finding my soulmate.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm not. I love to love myself now, but it might be because I have that
Mm.
same planetary positioning. I think you mentioned coming up when you wrote
Oh
the
yeah.
book, the Saturn
Yeah,
conjunction.
you mentioned that the other day. Like you're like, I think I'm just gonna love myself through this one. And I was
Yeah.
like, yes, that is exactly, that was my intention. That was and I let the other stuff go. And I did little love experiments, of course, and all of that. But a lot of what the reason why it works for just general co-creativity and manifestation, aside from the um, core message that we've been talking about, is like a lot of these little experiments, they definitely had roots in like manifesting a place to live, manifesting $1,000 when I needed it. Um, I think my very first co-creative experience was almost losing my car and my house and having nothing, zero in my bank. And I'm sure that, a lot of us have had this experience who are healers and who deeply understand co-creativity now. It was like I had nothing and I was like at my end. And I'm not even going to go into there. It was pretty dark. But um, yeah, I co-created myself out of that. I co-created a new reality. I co-created a place to live. I did not lose my car, and I got a job that paid me and so that same sequence of events that played into right before the love alchemy work, I was on it, right? I knew that I had tapped into something, and I was gonna continue it. So.
Well, you mentioned it was dark. And like, what do you think was the light that made you recognize, like, wait a second, I can co-create my way out of this? Like, what, like, was the shift?
Yeah. So it was, I was like, there was so many things. Like my vagina was on fire and I didn't know how to fix it. So my physical body was like rebelling and experiencing all these things. Um, so I was in pain, and the doctors didn't know how to help me. I didn't have a job. I was about to lose my car because I couldn't pay for it. I was sleeping on my sister's sofa. Um, I started, and I can't even tell you what brought me there. I basically got out of my sister's sofa, moved in with her best friend in the Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, and there was a church. Maybe I'd walked by it. It was God, what is my brain? It's Ernest Holmes Church, Church of Religious Science, Science of Mind. I walked in there one Sunday. I got nothing left to lose. Like it was the most interesting gathering of eccentrics you've ever seen. Haight-Ashbury gathering of Science of Mind people. I was like, yeah, I definitely feel weird. I didn't feel weird already. But the minister was really, really good. And she just like dropped us all right into this kind of vibration. I don't know what else to call it, an energy vibration of spirit. And they are really into manifesting. The Science of Mind people, they are really into manifesting and especially money. The ways they do that is they ask, you have nothing, give more, right? So that's like one of the tithing things that they do. And so I was like, shit, they do the little tithing and this whole experience feels really good. It feels good to be there and in that because it feels very loving and it feels very, uplifting. And I feel like I'm in some spirit flow. And so I gave money when I had none, and kind of that's, how it began. And then it was just like I would go every Sunday. Um, and I was listening. And, at some point, I hit a wall. I had the total dark night on one evening. And then I came back out of that and I said, fuck it. I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to go with this. I'm curious to see if this stuff works. I'm just going to start experimenting. So I did something like I don't know, maybe I just wrote it down that I needed money or um, that was the reality. I need this much money and I wrote it. I might have written a check to myself, that whole thing. I don't remember. My best friend at the time sends me a check out of the blue. So that's how it began, right?
Mm.
Like
You're
I
like,
didn't
oh,
ask for it. Yeah. So I was obviously connected, right? When we talked about connection at the beginning, I was beyond ego at that point. That's what that level of, it's like sometimes you get everything pulled out to get put back
yeah.
into your soul, right? And then that just happened. And I was like, okay. So yeah, kept up with that.
Yeah, sometimes the universe really does put you on your knees just to make you say, F it. I'm going, what? I'll just go with these eccentric people and be
Yeah,
delusional
yeah,
and
totally.
what I have nothing to lose. And sometimes you have to get to that point because if you had 1 ounce of more comfort, you might not have gone into that church
Mm-mm,
that day,
mm-mm.
but because you were so uncomfortable, it was like, okay, fine. And because you didn't have any money, you're like, well, I might as well just give it.
I
It's
mean,
not like this is
I
going to
did
fix my
not.
cause.
Yeah, I didn't want to live anymore. I had nothing, like I couldn't figure it out. Like I just couldn't figure out the magic formula. What other people were having and experiencing, I was not. And
Mhm.
I knew it wasn't my fault, but I life skills, I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. But the key thing that I came back from that dark night from is a curiosity. I have nothing left to lose. So let's see how this turns out. I'm
Yeah.
just going to try this. I was, totally humbled. So that's the genesis. So the dark and
Yeah.
light, the interplay of dark and light, and the remarkable thing that was like a seed that was planted so many years ago that ended up becoming this like wave of love, right? That you experience in that book. It's just kind of fascinating.
Yeah. So then you have to have so much gratitude for that time too, because it's
Yeah.
like it led you on this. You made it, once you made it through, took you into this whole new reality. And look how great it's gotten.
I couldn't have even envisioned this for myself at that moment, right? And so I learned now to not question dark nights, in fact, to regard them with some deep respect and some reverence, because those are often the times that we are growing these amazing things, but we just don't have the vision. We can't see it yet.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's that. I know I was going to ask you your origin story too. Do you want to share that like a little? Do you have anything that you can say there was a moment where, where you, because I know that you're deeply into manifestation and that feels like that feels really aligned with what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot of dark nights and I won't get into all of that right
Yeah.
now, but my first, when I first realized that I could co-create, I was a kid. Um, and I would
Love
just
that.
lie. I would lie though. It's not good. Because so I
I
think it,
think you were a precocious kid, if I may put that
yes,
forward.
definitely. Like if somebody said not to, it just was like, I have to now. Um, I even think that I was like a straight A student because I was told that it wasn't important to be a straight A student. So I'm like, I'm going to be one just because you said that. But I did this like kind of reverse engineer thing when I was a kid. So if I would think what I didn't want, and then I would somehow get what I did want. And then I started lying. So let's say I really loved your shirt.
Hmm.
I would be like, oh, I have that. And then I'd come home and my grandma would have like bought it for me. And
Uh-huh.
sometimes I think I have this kind of theory that sometimes our universe shows up as humans for a portion of our life, right? Like that prayer answerer. And my
Mm.
grandma was that. So if I ever wanted something, the universe showed up as my grandma to make it happen.
Oh,
And it was crazy because it would happen all the time. If I said that I had something, my grandma would just somehow, and I mean, she's a grandma. How did she know to get me that brand of that shirt? She's not the coolest grandma. She's a cool grandma, but not like in
yeah.
fashion. And so that was my first experience of co-creating. But I, like you, also had a dark night. Did lose my car actually.
Hmm.
I got it like repossessed, and I was having all this issues with finances and actually not having anywhere to live. And that really got me getting on my knees was what
Hmm.
I had this moment where I said, if I believe everything, because I was already very spiritual when this was happening. So I've
Hmm.
that disconnection thing that you talk about.
Hmm.
I don't know. I always think in my head, there's no way I'm getting disconnected this time. And then I get disconnected again. So I had been really disconnected when this dark night happened. And then I kind of got reconnected. And then I realized I was like, if I believe everything I say I do, if I am who I say I am,
Hmm.
I have to give this to the universe. And it
Hmm.
wasn't like a Delulu thing. It was just like more like, yeah,
Being
to
in
me, there's,
alignment with who you are.
and it's like, I'm going to surrender.
Hmm.
And I think there's certain levels where you manifest your way out. And I think there's certain times where surrender is the way
Hmm.
out.
Yep.
And so the last dark night that I had, um, knocking on plastic, I had to surrender. And people were looking at me like I was crazy. And I was like, no, the universe has
Hmm.
me, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And I got after I surrendered, it all worked out. And I had a test of forgiveness. And people looked at me like I was crazy. But
Hmm.
I knew that's what I had to do. I was being tested to be who I say I am.
Hmm.
And I had to handle this situation the like the person I say I am, you know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that
And I
that
know
I have
that
the chills right now telling that. But
I
yeah,
know I could feel the my gut chicken skin as we say here in Hawaii on my legs. I just felt it go up my legs. Yeah. Which is to me a sign of magic and a sign of truth that we're talking truth here. Yeah. And I know that, during those times, they're incredibly chaotic. There's a lot of conflicting information. There's a lot of external opinions. There's a lot of like what you mentioned, like, are you crazy? And so like, how do you tune out all those distractions, right? And you're giving a wonderful example of inner listening Like, no, I'm listening to myself. I know this is true. I know what it looks like to you, and this is totally illogical. And that's to me intuitive listening too, because I just told you today, like even scheduling our call, like logic would have told me to do it at a completely different time, according to the stars. My intuition was saying otherwise. Even Courtney was like, "Are you sure you want to? You seemed like you're more comfortable at this time." So I had to interface with all of these distractions. You're not a distraction, but you know what I mean. Like I had to interface inside myself and be self-reflective enough and inward enough to go, wait a second, where am I in this? And I think that that is core connection. That's what we're talking about here um, on this podcast. And that's what I see you model so well. That's what I try and do every single day. Um, and I think it's super helpful for other people to hear how we do this, how we deeply trust ourselves, when the voices out there and the voices up here, even, right, are like totally opposite or left field from what we feel. For me, it's like in my body, in my embodied awareness, whatever you want to call it, in my connection. Um, so I think that's a beautiful story. And
Yeah,
yeah, I love it.
it is. And like there was a time where I was like, I can never share this. And I didn't go into detail, but I share it all the time now. But there was a lot of shame that I had around a lot of that. And I recognized that that was a block for me. Like
Mhm.
me having shame was a block for my manifestation. So I had to open up to it. But on the topic of connection, um, I had something flood in because people lately, I've heard this so much in my like orb lately, is I want to figure out what my purpose is. People keep
Okay.
I keep hearing people say that. And it's such a funny question to me. I don't know why. It's kind of
Yeah,
like it feels a little disconnected to ask that question.
absolutely.
So, and
Yeah,
and
I
every
like my body went like this when you were like, I
yeah,
was like, no. Yeah.
yeah. And I wanted to know like what would be I just hear it so much and I'm like, how I feel like they just have to kind of live is my intuitive, like just like be present and take heed of where am I? Am I happy? Like, what am I feeling? And like knowing, and then that's how you kind of go. But I wanted to ask because you've written so many books and she's
Mm.
really humble about it, guys, but she's like multi-talented. How like do you know when something is for you? Like when you were obviously didn't have a job and then next thing you know, you've written 5 books. Like when did that go? Like how did
It wasn't next thing you know, as I'm sure you know.
well, I know that, but
It looks that way to you. I get it. I get it. Yeah. Like so the question is like, how do you feel called? Like, how do you
yeah.
feel called to do something that is like on path and feels purposeful and meaningful? I mean, I think that that again is a quality of listening to yourself. And I mean, it's such an interesting. So the first part is like first part of your question, like then you get so many people asking you, what is my purpose? So my typical way of responding to that is, or the question, what is my calling? What is calling you right now? Literally, what is calling you right now? Do you have to take care of a sick mother? Is that calling you because you love her and you feel like if you didn't do it, you feel this call. I am being called, and not for everybody, maybe somebody else would be like, I am not called to do that. And I understand that completely. But I am being called um, to study astrology, for instance, like you were recently called to do. What does that feel like? It feels like an excitement, something generative, something that holds energy, even if it's like something that your mind is like, oh, I'm not super jazzed about. caring for a sick relative, or, the calling being helping my kid get through math or something. If your mind may seem not super jazzed, but you feel this kind of like magnetic pull, of course I would do that. That to
Yeah.
me is like purposeful. It's
Oh,
like your soul reminding you that you are here to have a wide variety of experiences, and there's not going to be necessarily one purpose. You may have multiple callings, right? That may fall under this purpose for you that's, even if you had that phrase, you wouldn't even understand it because it's so like, I'm here to learn compassion. Well, how do I apply that in my day-to-day
yeah.
life? You wouldn't even under your ego would. So I feel like the best way to work with that is again, like what lights you up, what feels generative, what to you is like, of course there is a fuck yes, I'm gonna do this. I can't imagine not following this calling to do this thing that's in front of me right now. And I can say like I've struggled with that when there was a time when I flat out like I stopped wanting to do astrology because it didn't hold much for me. I was and that was my main thing. Um and I what is my purpose? I kept hyper focusing on that question, like hyper focusing. And like I would get kind of bitch slapped about that by spirit. Like I would say, like, aren't you listening? Like those kind of things, like, oh, well, maybe presence with your crazy emotions is the purpose right now. Maybe it's getting grounded and learning how to do these daily rituals that are going to help you be more connected in your body. Or maybe it's about self-acceptance is your purpose right now. So that I learned over time that I had multiple callings, but they all had to do with the present moment. And then to answer your question, about how I do it, it is really like that thing that comes that feels like when I write a book or when I know that I'm feeling called, it feels like it's just coming through me, and what I have to do is honor it, and it's as kind of ordinary as knowing I need to make dinner.
Yeah. Like a divine intervention though, right?
Yeah, but
Like
it's
it's
not like a lightning bolt, and I just want to dispel that myth for people.
See,
Like
I
feeling,
have had that though.
okay,
Like
okay,
I have had things come boom, and I'm like, I've been at work and I've been like, everybody, I'm not taking guests right now. I am writing a program.
okay.
And I
Yeah.
have like stopped, but those are very rare occasions. But what I like that you said, and I think this is going to be helpful for people because I think people are like, how do I get paid to live my purpose? And sometimes in that moment, your purpose isn't going to be a job. That's
Mm-mm.
what I think people are confusing is like career path and purpose. And yes, I am lucky enough to be compensated right now for something that feels very purpose led. But there's been times where you're right, like it's not, it's going to be taking care of your kids. And so if you're feeling like I need to find something else, but all you want to do is spend time with your kids, then
Right.
that's what you're supposed to be doing right now.
Thank
So I
you.
really
Yeah.
love that. That just really blew my top off.
Hmm. Oh, thank you. There was something I was gonna say, but then okay, maybe it'll come back to me about, oh, what you were saying about people wanting to get paid for being who they are. So that was a phrase that Stephen Forrest, one of my teachers, would use. He's a really great astrologer, in relation to like, you know, that, well, in relation to some astrology, but the feeling of wanting to get paid for just being yourself is common to all of us. And it's, to me, way more natural when we get connected. It kind of aligns and happens. But the hyper focus of um, success in our culture, and having the shingle on being the YouTube channel, or having the thing is I feel like that's what I heard when you said that, that there's like this ego version of
Mhm.
purpose taking place. And I think it's important to separate that out because the ego version is never going to feel nourishing. It's never going to make you joyful and happy. That's why, like, if we get to that same place we're going by being joyful and happy and figuring out all the things that light us up and being in pleasure and all of that, oh, here I am. I'm like on top of the world talking to Oprah. How did that happen? Oh, well, I just listened to myself and I took good care of myself and I followed my joy and I stopped when I needed to stop and I started when I needed to start and I honored all my callings. I think it's more like that. It's like an inside out versus an outside in.
Yes. Yeah. And that just made me think of something that I actually told one of my clients the other day because I was like, do what you would do for free. Like, if you
Okay.
would do this for free, then that's what you need to be doing. Because I
Mhm.
remember there was a time where all I did, I never charged for readings for like 8 years. I just wouldn't. I don't know why.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
well,
I felt so blessed to be able to do it
mm.
that I just was like, who wants one?
And there's
And
nothing wrong with that if you feel a total alignment with that. That's beautiful.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that everybody's purpose will be like
Right.
that. You know,
Right.
that's a good way to like, are you happy to do it regardless of externals?
Yep. Without any promise of reward or validation, really,
Yeah,
financially or otherwise. Is it going to make you happy just doing it? And, I can't not write. I can't, it makes me incredibly happy to write. It makes me joyful to write. And I don't think a non-writer can say that. Now,
yeah,
do I know where that came from? Not really. I'm just following, this call. So, I'm like looking at the time and I don't want to go too. I think we've like filled up a good amount of time.
yeah.
But
I think we answered a lot of the questions too, right?
I don't even remember what questions there were. That's how
I
good
think we
it's
were
been.
talking about self-love practices, but when with the energy work, that is perfect self-love practice that anyone who feels called to implement can implement into a
Yeah.
self-care practice. I
Yeah.
think
I
that
mean,
was the
we
only
can,
thing we didn't touch on.
oh, okay. Yeah, just connection, being connected to yourself and developing self-loving and self-caring um things that you can do. Like you had mentioned that to me before, like practical ways to implement like ongoing, like it's not just like a one and done self-love, right? It's not just going to do one thing. It's to me, it's like almost what I call holding the question, like what is what is the self-loving, self-kind, self-caring thing I'm going to do for myself this afternoon, like over and over and over again.
Perfect. That's a great question. So it's like not necessarily one routine, it's a check-in.
It's a present-based
Mm-hmm.
check in with where you are right now in this moment, because it's going to be different every day, right?
Yeah.
It's like you like to eat different foods every day. Like today I was like, what do I need to get back? Like, just really feel good in my body again. And I haven't been swimming in a long time. And it kept thinking, like, not thinking, but like intuiting. Like, I would see myself, I don't know, we all receive differently, like get flashes of myself swimming, or I get a sensation of how good that would feel. And so, like, it happened like 3 times. And I'm like, I'm going swimming, and so stuff like that. So
Perfect.
let's invite our listeners to ask that questions during this weekend of love. Yeah. What would feel self-loving? What would feel self-caring for me to do right now? And like take that few moments, right? To check in with yourself. Does that sound? Do you
Yeah,
have any
that's
other
great.
ideas?
No, I think that's actually beautiful. And it actually made me realize that I'm going about my self-love like a like my Capricorn rising would, and I'm like creating
Mhm.
all these structures. And it's like, do you actually need that today? Or did you just tell yourself that that's what it's supposed to look like? And
Right.
you're creating this like very spreadsheety routine. So that actually helped me. So thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, I get it. And that it's all about the joy though in this one. Like it's all about like an embodied like presence and like what is it today? So happy Valentine's Day to you, Courtney. Happy Valentine's Day to our new podcast. This is really fun. And I look forward to more great conversations and seeing where this leads. And I hope we have some new listeners and some feedback. So, oh, one thing I wanted to mention is if anybody has a desire to hop on with us, either as a guest or to get a quick little Q&A reading from me and Courtney, we can do that. So, just holding that intention that we can be the call-in talk show where you would drop into Zoom and you would come on and talk to us about, whatever really is blocking you from feeling connected to yourself and what it is you want. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Perfect. Can't wait to see who our first guest is.
All right. Me too. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Jessica. You are a gift, my gift. And that was great.
Mm, You are my number one fan. Thank you for
Always.
being you.
Me
Okay.
and John have to compete.
Yeah, you guys are really gonna have to hand out two, what are they? Blue ribbons? Two blue ribbons. Okay. All right. Have a good one.
Alrighty. All
Love
right.
you.
Bye. Love
Bye.
you.